Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I'm your host, Jake Thomas, and today I've got a really special guest sitting in her beautifully spread, humble abode in Natalia, Texas. She is a mother of 8. She's a farmer, a homesteader, a traveler, lived and worked around the world as a missionary, studied arts, agriculture, and culture. An Idahoan, my friend, an advocate of raw milk, of all things organic and a healthy food, staple to the body and for optimal vitality, Mrs. GAYLYN SCHOLES.
Ooh, that was quite the list. Thanks. Appreciate that.
I try to get like a good hype up for everybody. Not out of like, BSing, but just be like, yeah, it's pretty easy to talk about when it's good stuff. So we're sitting out here on your spread in Natalia, Texas, Southwest Texas, for everybody to know. We got pigs behind us, cows in front of me, birds are chirping, roosters are crowing. I mean, this is life. Like, your garden's right there. How did the girl from Idaho get lost down here in Texas?
Well, we actually came over from the military. My husband was Air Force, and so we ended up here throughout that journey. And then that's where I started going through my health crisis. And so that's where I started doing all my study. And so that's where we just ended up staying. And we've loved it ever since. So.
Wow. So all because of a military station, right? Mm-hmm. Getting you down here, and then talking about your own health crisis. What was it? What were you going through?
So in my late 30s, I started having an issue with terrible arthritis, and I love to work out. I love to run. I used to do triathlons and marathons and lift weights and all of those things, and that was my stress relief, right? And so when I started getting terrible arthritis and everything just hurt too bad to do anything, that was physically it was challenging, and then emotionally and mentally it was challenging, because that was my normal release to get rid of stress. And so that's what kind of put me into this journey here. That's why we're out on a farm, to be honest. So that kind of threw us into this, and I had to make a choice of whether to go the conventional route, or whether I wanted to see if there was some other thing out there for me, and I didn't know what it was. And so I went to several specialists for arthritis, and they had the idea that it would be just fine to just do pills the rest of my life, and I wasn't even 40, and so I was just like, that can't be right. And then that last little bit of the questioning that I had for them was like, is there something I can do to maybe get rid of the arthritis naturally? And I was like, maybe I should eat something different.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no, you're fine doing what you're doing. I was like, well, I drink a lot of soda. Do you think that has anything to do with it? And they're like, no, that's good. But, here's your pharmaceuticals. And so with regards to that, I took the prescription and put it in my pocket, and was like, that's not right. I know that's not right in my gut. So then I just had to start searching for what I was going to do. So that I did for about a year and a half. I think I was just looking and really, actually I'm praying about it, trying to figure out what I should do. I didn't know what to do, what I was doing totally wrong. I knew some things. Soda drinking wasn't a great idea. But that was a habit that I had developed early on, and I needed to finally get rid of it. But as anyone knows, when you have a bad habit, you need to replace it with something. Yeah. And so I didn't know what to replace it with yet, though. I found it later. But then, so what I found Nourishing Tradition, this book, this big yellow book, and it was talking all about raw milk and how wonderful it is for you. And it talked about something that's called the Wilsing factor. And as I was reading through this book, and what that is, it's the anti-stiffness factor. And I was like, ooh, I need that. I need that, because I am super stiff and I can't move. And so I found myself a raw dairy nearby. It was about a half hour away from me. And I was kind of nervous to start my first gallon of raw milk. I don't know why, because I grew up on raw goat's milk. very raw goat's milk, you know. I mean, I was doing the milking back then for my little brother who had some gut issues. So I don't know why I was nervous, but I still was, because I had also been told all these things throughout, you know, I guess high school and on, that raw milk was dangerous. Well, after I got done reading that Sally Fallon's Nourishing Traditions, I was like, I think she has some sense there. I think she knows what she's talking about. So I'm going to do it. And so I started buying 16 gallons a week of raw milk for my family.
16 gallons a week?
16 a week.
Wow.
Right?
You were probably a great customer for them then, right?
I was his best customer.
I bet you were.
Yeah. I would go every Saturday, and it actually was, you know, it's kind of dark out in the country in the night, and I would go out in the dark, and I was like, woo. But I mean, so I'm saying I had a journey too of like going out back to the country. I grew up in the country, but it had been a long time. So just that whole thing and this being devoted to making sure that that was part of our diet again. And so I just started going through that cookbook and trying everything that I could to incorporate that raw milk into our diet, and made up a bunch of other changes too. So, but that was the big thing. And then those books took me to all these other books, and I just started studying. And for the next, I guess for the last 14 years. So 14 years since I started with that one.
Wow.
And then I've just read, you know, lots and lots of other books and podcasts and all sorts of things. Sorry.
No, it's good. It's as real as it
gets. These guys are our purebred Great Pyrenees, and they protect all of the little...
They do so very well.
Yeah, they do a great job of protecting all of our little animals all over the place.
Yeah, I got to see them in action a few months ago when I was last here.
Yeah.
With the stray not Doberman, but German Shepherd that was running around.
That was running around.
These guys were like, no, we're not having that.
Yeah, you're not coming on to our place. Yeah. So that was kind of my journey, but so we did that for a long, long time, the 16 gallons of milk, and finally bought our own property. It took us a while to kind of figure out where we wanted to go. But in all of that book reading is where I learned what I needed.
Like supplies-wise?
Yeah, I couldn't go north because the way I wanted to do it was move the pastures around, do the mob grazing.
Yeah.
I studied a lot of different people that have gone before me, like one of them being Joel Salatin. And he would always talk about the mob grazing, how we move paddocks from one to the other, and then I figured that I was going to do it with these stakes that go into the ground, and so I knew I couldn't have rock.
Got it.
So I needed to have pasture that would that I could put into the ground okay.
Yeah.
And so I had to come this direction in Natalia instead of go to the north side where they have mostly rock, and there's no way you can get those in the ground.
Got it.
And Lizzie, you're just right in front of the camera.
Just trying to be a star.
I know. You're such a diva. But so anyway, so that's kind of what we had to do, and down here we had some water that would come from Lake Medina that we would be able to, in this property we would be able to get that. Little did I know though the drought would be good enough or terrible enough that there would be no water in the Lake Medina. Yeah. So, but so in Lake Medina it's empty right now. It's got like 3%. Yeah. So no water that way. So now we're at a point, we've been doing this for about 8 years. We've been on the property for 8 years. That we're now able to, hopefully I can afford to get a loan and get a well. So that'll relieve some of our water issues.
Oh, to be self-sufficient with water. Oh,
It'd be
nice.
great. Yeah. So everything's just like a little bit, the list is long, right? And you just start going through it like, okay, what can we do with the money and the resources that we have? Yeah. And then you just go from there. You just pick one thing, and I don't know if the list will ever end. I think the list is always going to be there of what can we do to better. It's kind of like part of being
a farmer, right?
Yeah, you're just always trying to improve things and always try to be more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did it, obviously it was, beginning was for personal need, right? Like you're self-healing and then integrating that into your family, thinking, all right, how can the kids benefit from this? All 8 of them, right?
Yep.
All homeschooled also, right?
Yep. We have, all of them were homeschooled at some point. There was a little bit of public going on, but not very much. And so, we've done most of our education at home, and it's been a fun journey.
And so what was it like, you know, obviously testing yourself as the end of one, or thinking like, okay, this is for my needs, it's for my health, but obviously I want to share this with my family, especially my children. Was there any reluctance, or like were you worried or scared?
Yeah, sure, there is a little bit.
What they, you know, are saying out
Yeah, I mean, and because, you know, I mean, they have friends and they have, you know, they go to parties, they even, you know, go to church, go to when our homeschool stuff. There's stuff that, you know, kids love to eat,
right?
And it's maybe some of it's garbage, but what we decided to do is, you know, kind of the 80-20, so that they don't develop a hate for all of this good quality stuff.
Sure, sure.
So we would just try to not be too terribly, you know, strict about it, but do the very, very best we can here. And then when they go out, you know, you eat what's available for you and drink what's available. But, you know, trying to incorporate in that book that I was telling you about, The Nourishing Traditions. I mean, for homeschool, that's what we studied that. Each grouping of kids, we would read through that. I think we've read through it like 3 or 4 times. Because they need to know the why, because this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
This is a lot of work. Yeah. And I mean, outside work, inside work, there's enough. When you're producing things, there's a lot of dishes.
Yeah.
You don't have a microwave, right? You're doing things the original. You're using a stovetop, you're using an oven. You're making things like truly from scratch. I'm not talking scratch open a can thing. We're talking like scratch. So there's a lot of dishes. There's a lot of work, inside and out. And so they have to know the why. Like, why would we want to do this? Why would we want to spend so much time just providing the basic necessities? Something I think that, you know, our population is like thought that they're free, that, you know, now they're free from the drudgery of providing for themselves these.
Oh, through convenience.
Through convenience, right? And what we find, though, is that's a really fragile freedom.
Yeah.
And what do you do then?
Like it kills self-reliance and
it kills
self-startership.
self-reliance, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not industrious.
Yeah, and the whole world is then now, okay, what can entertain me? Instead of you know, you're basically turning from a consumer to a producer.
Yeah.
What can I do to better the world?
Being a creator.
Being a creator.
Right.
It is. Yeah. And you know, it's not completely awesome going up. I mean, there's ups and downs and all of that. You know, you lose. Sometimes your animals die, and sometimes, you know, mistakes happen, and you leave the water on.
You mean you do that?
Oh, all the time. So I mean, there's things like that that are challenges. And so that's one reason why them being able to know the why of, like, why would we go to all this work to produce for ourselves. And I think actually when COVID happened, at least for me, I guess I can't speak for them, but it was like, we are doing great. Like, we're so ahead of the game. Like when there was nothing left on the shelves.
Right.
You know,
like, hey, all this was worth something.
I mean,
now.
we still needed to get a little bit more toilet paper in the house, but I mean, we had all the milk, beef, pork, eggs, chicken. We had all of it that we really truly needed. We might not have had as much of a variety as we normally would, but we would not be hungry, and we would have the highest quality. And so that was my true motivation. But then in order to be able to continue to do it this way, I had to make it into a business. Why? Because the inputs are so costly.
Got it.
The inputs are really, really costly. So I go over to an organic feed mill an hour and a half away and buy 6,000 pounds at a time.
6,000?
Yeah, we just did it.
Wow.
We just did it this past week. And
what is that, like, back up the pickup truck and they just open the
siphon? We put all of it,
like,
so it comes in these blue barrels right there. And so we put them in the livestock trailer.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, we put them in there, and no livestock in there, but a bunch of barrels.
Right.
Yeah, and then we just have to put them where they need to go.
These are like, what, 52-gallon barrels?
No, these are, I'm sorry, I don't know how many gallons, but it is, it'll carry like anywhere from 300 to 400 pounds of feed.
Yeah, okay, and you get 6,000?
Yeah.
Wow, so it's a bunch of these things.
Yeah, a bunch of them, yeah. Like 18 or something.
Are you their best customer too?
No,
wow.
They have semis. They have semis come in.
Oh my God!
So they serve some, like, an organic poultry business and things like that.
Nice.
So they dump it into the semis.
Nice. So the business was never on the forefront of thought. It just kind
No.
of happened organic. I mean, pun intended.
I
it
know,
happened
right? Organically. No, it just kind of happened that way that I kind of, to be able to keep going, I couldn't ask to get money from the family fund
Right.
every time I needed money, and it was often, right? To be able to buy my first cow. I
Yeah.
borrowed from my homeopathy account.
Nice.
And then I got some people at the very, very beginning, I got some friends that would, like, hey, I want to get this cow. Do you want to put up I guess it was $1,000. My first cow was $4,000, right? I had $2,000 in my homeopathy account that I borrowed from. And then I borrowed 1,000 from this friend and 1,000 from this friend, and we set it up to where I bring them over, I'd just pay it off by giving them, bringing them over milk to their door back in that day. And they were so sweet, and I just so appreciate them. That was a long time ago, but that was how I got my first cow. I didn't have any money to go get that cow. I just knew I needed one. And so since then, of course, I've been able to bring in a little bit so that I can do these other projects that I need to do. Get my first pigs.
Yeah.
And so it was through that you have to have money to be able to get started in this stuff. And so you have to figure out, and creativity, right, of how we can get started.
Yeah.
And so, that organic feed isn't cheap.
No, I'm sure it's not.
You know?
It's got that
It's
magical
not.
word in front of it.
I know. And then the hoses and just, all these different little things. And it's not that I've been able to do it all with just the money that I've been able to bring in with the farm. Sometimes I have to borrow from the family fund.
Yeah.
But it's worth it to me because it gives us the sustainability that we need. And I want this kind of food. I want this food.
Yeah.
I guess it's selfish.
In a good way.
I want it for me, and I want it for my family. And then it's a blessing to be able to have it available for others.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, hopefully it's generational. Hopefully we can...
Well, it looked like it was from the pig wrangling I
all
watched
right.
this morning.
Yeah, right. So hopefully we can, hopefully this is something that our children have enjoyed or can enjoy in the future, bringing their children to, and
it's already set up. Like
it's
the
set
hard
up.
work's been done,
Yeah,
guys.
all the brain work
Yeah.
and all of the main
building infrastructure,
yeah.
laying pipe and hosiery. Like it's all done.
already done. So it's not as
Just gotta
terrible.
keep it going. You just
That's
gotta
right.
keep it going.
You just gotta keep it going. So, but it's definitely worth it because, one, as we talked previously, it's just not fun being sick.
Yeah.
And when
We're scared.
we're scared.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's just, and not knowing what to do.
Yeah. And
So
feel
then-
stupid.
It's all of those things.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely worth keep going. And then just as we, now I don't get as much book learning in unless I listen to on audio because we're working all the time, which is
Yeah.
fine. But now what we're doing is just fine tuning all of the bases of what I've already learned. Now we're just fine tuning it with, audiobooks and podcasts and things like that, gleaning from other people.
Yeah.
Of maybe where we can do some more.
Yeah. So it started with milk. How did the pigs come into play? The garden, the poultry, the sheep. What else? Oh, the seed.
The fodder system.
The fodder system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like where was it all? It wasn't all at once, right? Like you
No,
kinda
it
grew
wasn't.
into
And
each
that's the way
phase?
that these things go. I knew that I wanted a milk cow. That I knew for sure. And I knew I wanted a garden. And I knew I wanted all of these things. All the things that we have going right now, at one point, it was all on my list.
Okay.
It was all on my list. I just didn't know in what order I was going to do it all.
Okay.
But I do have to say, the cow is the queen of everything that I'm doing. And why? The reason that the cow is the queen, and it's the hardest thing that we're doing too. It is the hardest, the most time consuming, is the milk. But the reason that she is the queen of all of this is because, and probably why she's revered in many countries, right? Mm-hmm. The cow is.
Yeah.
Is because she provides enough milk for us, and then you can take that extra milk if it's abundant, you feed your other animals. I can, off of a cow, I can feed pigs.
Oh,
And that's
gotcha.
historically how it was done.
Gotcha.
you know,
Not
when they
the
made
other way
cheese.
around
No,
necessarily.
right, yeah. You can't feed a pig to the cow.
Right.
I mean, if you got grass,
Right.
if you've got grass, you've got it made, because if you can get a cow, then the cow can feed the pig, it can feed the dogs, it can feed the chickens. You could do everyone entirely off of milk if you needed to. Chickens could be just completely survive off of milk. So could dogs.
People too.
And that's
which
right.
We now know.
He did a month-long milk fast,
With
and
her milk.
Yeah, it was
Pretty
awesome.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, milk it's pretty transferable.
It is.
Universal donor.
It is. I mean, I can't think of anything that it can't feed. I mean, and you can use milk if you dilute it down. You use it as a fertilizer.
Like you do.
Yeah.
Like
so
that wonderful smell we're getting here.
Yes, that's right.
If we could transmute it through the camera, would be awesome. But this putrid, like sour, somewhat fruity, but very recognizable, specific smell.
Yeah,
like
it's a
something
ferment.
fermenting.
Yeah.
Like you can tell it's fermenting. It's kind of got a kombucha,
Yeah,
rotten
I'd say.
alcohol, a little bit of like citrus or like acid to it. I'm not a sommelier, so I'm doing my best to give
No, that's
notes.
good.
But
So what we do is we take that organic feed and it's a dry feed. It's kind of powdery.
yeah,
And then we put whenever I make milk or excuse me, cream, and then we have the skim milk, or I make cheese, and all that whey goes into a bucket in the house. We don't throw anything away. It all goes to a slop bucket.
nice.
We have 2 slop buckets, the solid one and the liquid one. And everyone's supposed to, when they clean their plates, it goes into the slop bucket, right? Then you don't really even need a disposal unless someone's being naughty. It's not following the instructions. So
Which is amazing.
it's great.
Like you literally don't need it.
You don't need it.
Because all the other stuff is organic and breaks down.
Yeah, it just breaks down. So it all comes out here, and we put it in the container, and then we put that dry feed in with it, and it comes up to like an oatmeal consistency, and it just ferments. And that what happens though is it's making that grain now bioavailable, easier for the pigs to digest. So they're able to digest more of it.
Right.
You know, we could eat all day long, but if we're not digesting
It's
well,
got to be some type of enzyme activator or digestive enzyme
sure.
activator. Yeah. Cool.
So, I mean, that's the thing, and we could eat all day long, and if we can't digest it all, it's just very expensive pee and food, right? Because it's just all going out.
yeah, yeah.
But this way, if we get it ready to go, and you can find some of this information in the Nourishing Traditions too, where we talk about soaking grains overnight. Whenever you make bread, soak the flour, or you can make you can sprout the wheat berries. I mean, there's all sorts of things like that, and you're doing the same idea by soaking in like an acidic medium overnight. You're getting it ready for your gut.
And the pigs love it.
Oh yeah, so these guys love it. They eat it up. They love it, and then they love that fodder too that we do, which is organic.
God, I got to see that. Yeah, the cows go for that like it's crack.
Oh, they love it. They love it. So it takes this organic barley seed, and then what you do is we put it in our machine over there that we have, and it sprouts it and turns into this big mat of just
it looks like
green.
it looks like a doormat.
It looks like a doormat.
Really nice
yeah.
doormat. Really
yeah.
green doormat.
Yeah, and it smells really fresh. It smells yummy.
Yeah, it's tasty over there for sure.
So, but those are the things, and of those, and you just keep learning. You keep learning how you can do things better. The reason we went with the fodder system in the first place was because we had so much drought, and so we just, I was just feeling very, what's the word? I didn't feel like we were set very well. Like, if I have to buy hay, this is not a viable option.
Got it.
Like we will not make any zero money at all to even do projects.
Got it.
If we have to do hay all the time. And
like
so,
purchasing it externally,
purchasing,
right, as opposed to making your own.
Right. So if we get enough rainfall, this actually kind of pays for itself. But if there's not enough rainfall and we have to go get hay for these animals,
Your dust.
oh yeah, there's no way.
How was last
It's
summer
just
like?
in the red. I mean,
What was last summer like?
Oh, it was terrible.
Right.
Right.
Like a
Yeah.
huge
So it was
drought.
terrible. Huge drought, and so that was an attempt to try to be able to produce our own feed in quality. Right. When we go get hay, we do our best to make sure we're getting hay that has not been sprayed, but we're at the mercy of whatever they tell us. Right.
Yep.
I'll say, hey, have you sprayed this hay? And they're like, oh no. I have to take that as no.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean,
Are you sure?
are you sure you know what you're talking about? And so This way I knew exactly what's going into that fodder, and everyone loves it. You could feed it to the pigs, the cows, the chickens, the sheep. The only ones you can't do is the dogs. But if you can feed the cows, then you
Right.
got milk for the dogs.
Right.
Right? So,
So
it's
it all
this big
goes back to
yeah,
the
it all
cow.
goes back to that. And then so we started out with one cow and hand milking. It was me on one side doing 2, and it was one of my sons on the other side doing the other 2. And just getting used to that was a big step.
I'm sure. And how the kids have been doing it since they were able? I mean, since
Yeah, well,
walking.
so let's see. Our oldest was out of the house at that point, and then everyone kind of had their turn at it at some point. And but then when I finally got to 3 cows, I think is when I got the machine. So I have a machine now that I do.
It's probably better for scale too, right?
Yeah, because now I can do it just by
bottling sake,
I can do it by myself. Although, it is kind of fun to do it manually, but that much repetition, I did start getting tendonitis in my elbows.
No kidding.
Yeah, so
wow. Okay.
I had to stop anyway for that reason.
Got it.
It was like just too much.
Oh, okay,
Because
yeah.
I'm pretty strong, but there was a lot of opening bottles, and so there was that movement, and then the milking twice a day.
All on the inside, probably.
Yeah,
right?
well, actually, it was out
on
here on the
outside.
elbows.
Okay,
yeah,
wow.
it was out there.
So lateral epicondylitis.
And so that was a little bit too much for my.
Tennis elbow is the lateral one, right? And golfers is the inside, or vice versa. I forget.
Yeah,
But
I forget too.
Lateral medial epicondylitis. I've had a bad
You've had
medial
that
on the
there.
inside. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to kind of stop doing it for that reason too. Besides the fact that it really did help me be able to fine tune some stuff and not have quite so much work for the kids.
Sure.
So they could do other things actually.
Which is important.
It is.
What so all that progress, all that work, all that effort, all that learning, experimenting, struggling, what's it done for your conditions?
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, let's see, when all of this was starting out, I was about 38. Now I turned 55 in July. And so, I've aged, but I've aged more gracefully than I would have.
Hell yeah,
not,
yeah. Damn straight.
So, if I need to, I can go run. It's not like I'm not fast anymore, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I can still lift and I can still do all those things. I don't have as much time anymore to do it as much as I love to, but I love doing all of that stuff and working out. So I'm able to move. I am able to move. I do have to be careful, just because I did a certain amount of damage that I don't think is completely reversible.
Yeah.
So. But there's enough that I have been able to reverse that I'm definitely improving instead of getting worse.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to understand that, my condition is I judge the condition's state based on whether it's gone or not. Well, what about if it stopped worsening?
Right.
That's pretty darn good too.
That's pretty awesome.
Like the same thing with like how you feel.
Right.
Well, just because you don't feel great every single day is different than feeling bad. Rather.
Oh, for sure.
I think it's easy to take for granted, like, why should I do this? I mean, I've kind of felt okay, but it's not like I was walking around on cloud 9 every day. Well, duh. Like, maybe that's not the case, but you definitely know when you feel bad.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then, I used to think it was kind of crazy talk when they would talk about the barometric, the weather changes and stuff, and then I realized, no, that's like for real. I'm a little achy, and so I'll have my, I'll have flare-ups, but the thing is, I have a lot longer without flare-ups.
Nice.
So there's some maintenance stuff that I have to do to keep my mobility, but it's so awesome. And I know that all of this food, and then I have to add in the homeopathy also, which I wouldn't have, had I not gotten sick, I wouldn't have gone to homeopathy. I wouldn't have gone to all of this holistic eating.
Yep.
So in a way, I'm grateful for the experience, right?
Yep.
Of getting arthritis early in life, because I wouldn't be in the same spot, and I kind of like where I am.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I'm grateful that I did have the experience of getting sick earlier on, so that I could hopefully maybe change the trajectory of where my family would be later in life. That maybe they'll have some information that we wouldn't have had I just continued on my way and drinking my sodas and going to the gym and breaking down my spine.
You couldn't run it away.
I couldn't run it away, no. Yeah, so it came to get me, but and it wasn't the only thing. I went through that whole era of the non-fat. I think that had about a decade of not eating any fats. And I think that was damaging also to the spine that I had and my hips and things like that. So, ooh, that was a hornet.
Yeah, I'm watching it fly around you. I'm like, don't say anything.
Okay.
She's fine. She doesn't see it.
It's looking for that home I put over there.
I know, right?
Yeah, but no, it's been a wonderful journey. It's, it hasn't been an easy journey for sure, but it's so definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of work. But I'm very appreciative where we are now, and I feel much more secure in the society where our society is right now, where it's I perceive it as fairly fragile. Mm-hmm. The different systems, whether
critical.
Yeah.
It is critical of things, meaning like the judgmentalism. I don't know if that's a word, but we're very critical of things. We're more apt to criticize than admire. We're more apt to tell why as opposed to asking why. We're more apt to discern as opposed to, wonder.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree. Yep. There's just so much to be grateful for. And I was just going to say, like, with regards to the systems, right? So we get used to all these systems that are being provided for us. And so once you start bucking one system, you start bucking another because you're like, oh, that isn't exactly what I thought it was.
Right.
So I think for us, the way that it looked for us was I found some really awesome people that were homeschooling years ago. Yeah. And I was like, that's really neat. I like that idea. And so that was the first system we bucked, was the education system. Like, I could do that.
Wow.
And so we bucked that one first, and then you get sick, and then you're like, wait a minute. There's two reasons why I'm probably sick, and it's going to have to do with the medical system, and it's going to have to do with food system. So then you start looking into that, and you're like, oh, well, I got to buck those two systems too, right?
No more sick.
Yeah. And so, but the great thing is that once you start investigating these things, then you find ways, or you find your solutions.
Yeah.
You find your solutions. And so I wouldn't have found had I not been looking. You got to look first.
Same. Like, I wouldn't drive 90 minutes regularly to come here from the comforts of home if I didn't believe in what was here.
I think that's amazing too, and I do. I think, that's definitely on the die-hard scale. Is most people come here from about a half hour away, maybe 45 minutes, 50 minutes, but you're topping it at 90. So that is truly amazing, and that just shows your devotion.
Yeah.
When you find quality, you want to go get it.
Yeah.
And that's awesome, and I appreciate you supporting us.
And like one of the first trips I came here, when you introduced me to that book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. I mean, that became like a Bible.
It is.
That's literally like a Bible to me now. And people are like, "What book? From a dentist? Really? That's where you lay a lot of your nutritional loyalty and guides?" I'm like, "Yeah, man."
Because it makes sense.
When did you find that, or when did that book find you?
It was soon after. I found the Nourishing Traditions first, and then that was the second book I went to.
Oh, wow.
And it just blew my world. I was like, oh my gosh. And I start looking at all my kids' teeth. I'm like, okay.
This is the person who got me into not brushing my teeth anymore either, with toothpaste.
Well, just go read that book and you'll read about the Swiss, right?
That's exactly what I did.
Grody teeth, but man, they were
strong and healthy.
And so it really truly was amazing. So that anything that I've read thereafter is kind of to help support that original finding. I'm just like, okay, this makes total sense to me, and I love it, and this is what's going to like guide me in all of the other things I do. And so then that's what takes you all to these other people that you start learning about that are just ahead of you. And that's all you need. Is the mentors we need are just steps ahead of you. And I'm really grateful. And most of my mentors are the people that I've read in these books. I'm grateful for them. Yeah. And
you had the Weston A. Price Foundation here
Yeah,
recently, right?
they just came for a tour on the farm in April.
I know. I couldn't be here. I was
I
out
know,
of
we missed
town.
you.
I was gonna come, and I remember when you said, I was like, oh my God, I'm so there. Are you kidding me? I was gonna bring my book and everything to get signed, and
nice.
I was out of town, but
worries.
it was remiss, yeah.
But it was a fun group. We probably had about 50.
Oh
50,
wow,
60
that many people.
Yeah,
okay.
so it was a good group.
Yeah.
It was really fun. And I was really appreciative to be able to, of course I went way long. People had to start leaving because they had to go do other things. But I was like going on hour 3 and I was like, this
nice.
is so, you know, I
Total
mean, you've done my
experience.
tours
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I get so excited because it's things that have been meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just, so I can go on and on and on about things. And I was appreciative when people had questions, so we just would go with it.
Nice. That's what hooked me the first day I came. I remember for the tour, I was like, I'm just here to get milk. Like I don't need the whole tour in my mind, you know. But then I was like, as soon as you started talking, I saw everything. It was cold. It was really
cold
overcast. Yeah, it was winter, and I'm so glad I did get the tour because then I was just like, all right, now I'm really hooked. You know, because it's the passion and the rawness and just the experience that can't be. I'm trying to tell it right now, you know, and talk about it, but it's being here, hearing the birds, being in the grass with my feet around, smelling everything, hearing the pigs, like the chickens, the cows, like, I mean, it sounds, you know, cliche farm talk, but like it's seeing somebody doing it literally like salt to the earth style. And it just, like I said, it was like, okay, this is worth the trip for sure. And then when I started tasting the products.
I'm so glad that you did.
Oh, well then the products spoke for themselves too. So like to that segue, milk was first. With that was butter. I mean, everything
Butter
dairy,
and cream.
kefir,
I mean,
cream.
my thought process is, I'm doing it anyway. I can do a little more.
Right.
Right.
Did you have to learn about each of those processes differently?
I'd already done that. So I'd already done that. I knew what I needed to do.
Nice. You did that as a kid too? Those parts?
No, not because well, I'm just saying that in my learning, I'd already learned what I needed to do and how to do it.
Was it that much more of an undertaking?
To do the extra products?
Yeah.
Well, you go in and out of like milk amounts, right? As they go in and out of lactation. And so when you're at the beginning of a lactation, there's just a lot of milk. And so you
like
have
when
extra.
when they're like the pregnant Guernsey, that's the big one. She's got a big bag on her right now. Like how many gallons are in that?
It depends on how much you feed her.
Okay. Like when she's really full then. What
when
are we
she's
talking?
really she
like
could
10 gallons?
She could produce 10.
10 gallons? Like
she could.
In the bag?
In the bag. She could have 10 gallons. Now she does
It's like a 90-pound bag.
I know. Could you
a
imagine?
100-pound bag.
It
pretty
is.
Much. I mean, 8.5 pounds
it's
per
a good
gallon.
thing she's a tall, strong.
Just walking around swaying
I know,
that.
swinging that.
God.
But the thing is, she's not going to produce that much here, and this is the reason why. Because she's on grass, and I'm only giving her organic feed at milking time, and I'm not giving her a huge amount of that.
As opposed to
like in a dairy. They're in like a factory farm dairy, right? They're just feeding them grain. There's no grass.
What's
There's not a blade of grass.
in amounts they produce because of that?
Oh, she could produce. I mean, she's probably producing. I think right now she's producing 2.5 every time I milk her. But and so she would at least be doing 8. If I was feeding her, if I was feeding her grain all day long, she would eat enough.
That much more?
Yes.
So like the animals are that stressed and strained and overproducing that badly?
I mean, you're just feeding them, and it's not really what they're supposed to be eating all the time. I mean, that's fine. It keeps their condition up.
But not like machines like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she would produce a lot of milk, and I could do it to her.
Yeah.
I could get more milk, but that's not what I'm about, right? I want quality.
Yeah.
So I want them on grass, and then I want them to feel like that they can give me everything. So I do give them some organic grain, non-soy grain, at milking, so that they can keep their condition up. And what that means is just that can keep some fat on their bones, you know, and be able to produce. But so I mean, and then I rotate the pastures around. So we're just going around the farm all the time. We're just picking up the pasture, moving it to the next one. And it's called mob grazing. If you read Joel Salatin, I don't know if he's the one that kind of coined that phrase or whatever, but we call it mob grazing because we're trying to simulate the natural way of the buffalo. Yeah, they would go from one place and they would rest. The main thing is the rest, right? You would rest for months, and then they would come back when it's nice and tall again. They'd come back and mow it down, fertilize it at their own, their own pace, and then they'd move on.
So truly regenerative.
It is, yeah. And so you're building soil. Every time you do that rotation, you're building soil. And that's huge, right? You're just increasing the fertility of your soil.
Yeah.
Instead of this takeaway of
just over and over
doing the same thing, and then you put chemical fertilizer on it or something, and it turns it into a drug addict is what it is if you do it that way. And so it's sad when you take all the animals off the landscape. I knew I had to put animals on the landscape to get the fertility. I guess there's been a scare for fertilization or fertilizers in the world in the last little bit, but not when you do it with animals.
Got it. Not when it's natural as opposed to synthetic.
Yeah, synthetic. There's been there's been a scarcity with synthetic fertilizer, I guess, but not when you have animals. When you have animals, you have all the fertilization that you need, and you just want just the right amount.
Yeah.
So
you don't need surplus.
You don't need a surplus. Yeah, and you take what you do, you make it into you make it into the compost, put it in the compost, and you're sustainable. But there is work involved.
Yeah.
It's not free of labor.
Cost, right?
There's the cost.
It doesn't cost monetarily, but it costs opportunity and physical labor.
And in the Industrial Revolution area, people were kind of tired, I think, and they just were looking at ways of how can I, not have so much work.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize the trade-off, I don't think. So they go into the cities, and you got money in your hand. And many of these farmers before that didn't have hardly any money.
Yeah.
They didn't have much money, but they were self-sustaining, which was amazing. They didn't realize what they had.
Right. They didn't need the currency.
Yeah, they didn't need that currency as much. They did a lot of bartering and things like that. But once they went into the city, and you're like, yeah, I got paid, I got money, and that's great, but it's not, now you have to go buy that milk, and now you got to go buy this, and now you're dependent on all of these other people that are maybe have a different philosophy of how to produce that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on your own place, you have to do the labor for it.
Right. You're your own economy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So dairy leads to pork and pastured poultry. What else is here? Sheep.
We have some sheep.
Did I say
and
sheep?
The sheep.
No,
No
sheeps. No sheeps, Jake.
But the sheep are wonderful. We do them the same thing. We move them from pasture to pasture, and it's just where I need it mowed down a lot of times. And a lot of times it's in the garden. It's turned out like using that term again. This has kind of been an organic figuring out what works for you. So what that means is there's nothing. We're just figuring out where is the best place for these guys to work. And every animal has their job, right? So the sheep are kind of turning into my weed whackers, right? And
nice.
They are able to keep the weeds down in the garden that I'm not using. And then they put those cute little pooies down. And it's perfect to go straight into the garden and just sit there.
And not the cow patties the
cow patties are, they're a little bigger. And that's better for the pasture out here. I mean, it's fine in the garden too, but they're just cuter, the little ones. And then the chickens are in the orchard, and the beauty of that is you really can't have anybody else in the orchard, especially a young orchard like mine.
Because they'll tear it up?
They'll tear it up. Yeah, they'll push things over, break off limbs, eat the fruit.
Yeah.
But the chickens, they leave everything alone.
Sounds like stuff pigs
right,
would do.
Yeah.
I'm getting a hint here. Sorry, guys.
I know. They would destroy it too. So you can't really and even sheep could even damage. You'd have to micromanage them in the orchard. You'd have to watch them. Otherwise they can eat the bark off the trees.
Oh, dang.
And so you'd want to watch that. So I don't even put them in there unless it's really bad. I need it mowed down, and I'll just keep them just for a little touch, and they'll leave the trees alone at the beginning. So the chickens really do most of the fertilization in the orchard. And I know it's not exactly what Salatin's system is. Joel Salatin's, I refer to him a bunch, but he does it a little bit different. But that's the beauty of it. You can take those ideas and then make it your own of what works for you, right?
Sound familiar?
So yeah, so make it what you can do for yourself. And so I have chickens rotating around the whole orchard. So they're fertilizing the orchard, debugging the orchard, eating things that fall down. Like if there's fruit right now, there's apples and peaches in there, and they're falling off to the ground, and go for it, chickens, eat it up.
Grub away.
Yeah. And so it works out really well. And then the sheep, like I said, the sheep are just kind of keeping everything down in the garden where I'm not using them. Obviously, I have to keep them out of the areas that I am gardening. And then with regards to the garden is completely organic. And everything grows awesome in there. I mean, it's just, there's so much fertilization. One, because I put animals through there all the time.
Yeah.
When I'm not using those certain areas.
Yeah.
Put animals through it. They eat it down. They leave their excrement. They leave their fertilization, pee and poo. And
it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's not that terrible. I mean, we are lucky that we have these electric fences, these portable solar electric fences that make it possible.
I touched one of them on accident last time I was here.
Yeah, it can be painful. It can be painful.
I was definitely like, hey!
That's right. Hello! Or even I'll say, look, it doesn't even hurt. I'll show people. And then I still get like, whoop, I still get jumpy. So that's something I don't know how they did back in the day when they didn't have portable electric fencing. That's kind of a newer thing. So I am really grateful for some of those innovations that people have come up with.
Yeah, it's high speed, I guess, right?
Yeah. So I don't know how they would have done that. Maybe I think they just would have put up lots and lots of cross fencing and stuff, and then just stay out, have
like tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, just all over the place. But yeah, I mean, so with regards to that, I mean, we have ducks and chickens together,
ducks too.
and so all you need is a kiddie pool, and ducks are perfectly happy. You just have to change it out every day. But yeah, I had someone else talking to me the other day too, of just like how they have a small little area and they just want a little bit of fertilization. So they got ducks with a pool, and then there's your fertilization. They poo in the little kiddie pool, boom, there's your fertilizer. It's not very hard. Yeah, it's all nice and liquefied. Just dilute it maybe a little more and even go for it. So, I mean, one of the things I love about the homesteading lifestyle is that everything has a purpose. And I think in our world, that's something that's kind of gotten lost, is the virtual and the, as we've gone to, so many virtual kind of things. And I don't know. It just seems like it's so much nicer to have everything with a purpose. Even just, we would look, when we used to live in town by SeaWorld, we kind of had to search for work, like real work for our kids to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have the lawn to mow, we can trim, but there just wasn't like really great purposeful work. And I wanted them to not be afraid of getting sweaty.
Yeah. Working
outside. It's not, that's okay. It's good. You could sweat more than when you're just working out.
Yeah.
So I wanted them to have that experience of what it looks like to just work hard, and not just mentally, but physically, that it brings joy.
Would you say it's part of the legacy of the farm and the namesake of Pura Vida?
Oh, right. Yeah. So going back to Pura Vida, yeah. I mean, just Pura Vida, as you know, right? It means pure life, or it's just the exclamation that the Costa Ricans use for everything, pretty much. It's like awesome, super cool, all of those things. And yeah, I that's what it seemed like it fit, that name for this farm, just because it is all about having a wonderful life, and living well. I think living well while we're here and learning what we need to learn while we're here, So that does motivate me. Purpose motivates me. Not everything motivates me, but that really does. And so if I can find purpose in it, then I'm all over it. So.
That's awesome. Well, sitting with Mrs. GAYLYN SCHOLES of Pura Vida Farm in Natalia, Texas. Thank you so much for the time today, GAYLYN.
Oh, for sure.
It's so cool to be here.
I'm so grateful that you asked.
Every time.
This is fun.
I don't know what book I'm going to take away this time from you. I'm sure you'll show me another one that I haven't read yet or something else.
We can go through the bookshelf.
But for anybody else, if you're ever in the area, Natalia, Texas, Pura Vida Farm, I get my milk from here. I get pork from here. I get beef from here. And when the eggs are around,
root beer, don't forget the root beer.
Root beer too, and all of GAYLYN's other fun homeopathic products. But yeah, it's amazing just to find someone that's, like she said, really living a purpose and in a selfless sense, because it's about providing, I think, more than anything. You know, like you said, it's about being a creator more than a consumer.
Yep, for sure.
Remember that, guys.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's a pleasure to be here.
And we appreciate your supporting us, as I said.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's about to be a food haul now. After we finish this, I'm gonna have to go check out, see what the new provisions are.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
Right.
So for everybody else, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I'm Jake Thomas. We'll see you next time.